Hey, remember Newgrounds? I'll bet you do. One look at my channel, it'd probably be pretty evident that I remember Newgrounds too. Seeing as how I have 4 of my favorite Sprite movies up on here so that they can be easily accessed either by nostalgic people like me or a new audience. Speaking of which, Newgrounds itself has found a new audience thanks to a certain game. Maybe you've heard of it? Hard not to have heard about Friday Night Funkin' by now. A game with delightful aesthetic, great music, and solid gameplay. There's a reason it's taken off like it has. But we're not here to talk about FNF. Instead, we're here to talk about a certain redhead that stars in the game. That's right, we're talking about Pico. Or is it pronounced Pico? I'm not sure. Either way, Pico is something of an icon. For all you kids who don't know, this guy was one of the mascots of Newgrounds. Before Friday Night Funkin', before Alien Hominid, even before Tankman, there was Teletubby Funland. Okay, that's a little too far back. Go forward 1 year to 1999. In the wake of the horrific Columbine massacre, a game was created by one Tom Fulp. This game was meant to take the absolute piss out of the whole situation. That game would be Pico School. It was everything you'd expect of the early internet. It was crude, tasteless, and so violent. And you know what? It was also revolutionary. For the time, this was one of the best Flash games you could find. Honestly, I'd say it still holds up fairly well. The graphics, while primitive, have a certain charm to them. The gameplay is mostly point and click with some shooter moments. It's simple, but man, the game can get surprisingly tense sometimes. That fight in the bathroom against Hanzo is what turned boys who are too young to be playing this into men. The humor, well, that's subjective. Thanks to growing up on Newgrounds, my sense of humor has been permanently tainted, so I still think the game can be pretty funny. There's some things that might raise some eyebrows to the more sensitive in 2021, but I've seen pieces of NG media that have aged so much worse. It's not so bad here. Let's start at the beginning of the game. It's simple, really. Pico is in class, learning about apples and bananas. Then this goth girl, Cassandra, gets up from her desk and starts ranting about how the system is bullshit. When she's done, that's when the bloodshed begins. Bloodshed so intense, computers today still can't handle it. I think that Tom Fulp made a good call by making it so you're saving the school rather than shooting up the school. I think the latter would have been far more tasteless, to the point where it wouldn't have been funny. Pico School definitely isn't tasteful in any regard, but you could tell it wasn't made with any kind of malicious intent. Although you are given the choice to play more violently, if you should so wish. About 4 instances of this pop up. First, you're given the option to either leave Alucard alone after his boss fight, or to blow his brains out. Second, after you blow away Cyclops' gun, you can either choose to spare him as well, or to shoot him. You can then shoot him again if you're feeling especially cruel. Third comes when you go into the boys' bathroom. If you open in one of the stalls, somebody is actually still in the stall. In one of the game's more lowbrow moments, he starts flinging poo at Pico. You're either given the option to shoot up the stall or to leave the little shit slinger to himself. Finally, a girl named Nene runs up to Pico and begs him to end her life so that she may be spared of this anxiety. The player can either keep on moving or fulfill Nene's desire. It's kind of crazy how many options and secrets there are in this Flash game from 1999. Again, there's the kid in the stall who slings crap, but there's also some medicinal herb in one of the lockers. You can flush the urinals and the bathrooms, and you can even leave the sinks running, Wet Bandit style. The janitor's room also has one of the greatest pieces of foreshadowing I've ever seen in any piece of media with this Chicks with Dicks poster. You'll soon find that at least in this instance, it's not twice the fun. Also, there's a turd in the corner because poop funny. When all is said and done, you finally confront the instigator of the shooting, Cassandra, in the big flammable bomb room, as all schools are known to have. I think one of the highlights of their chat is that Pico delivers one of the rawest lines I've ever heard in a video game. It doesn't matter anyway. You have all failed the test of life, and I'll take you all on if I must. Damn. God damn. After being owned so utterly hard, Cassandra drops all the pretenses and kills her 2 remaining cohorts. The final fight begins as Cassandra reveals her true form as a giant alien with, well, let's just say this is a final boss I can't show on YouTube. The fact that the final boss is a big old wang you have to shoot at only makes the boss more intense, since you are constantly looking over your shoulder to make sure your mother didn't see what you were playing. The game ends with a cutaway to 6 months later. Pico is returned to class with a new teacher. Things are looking nice until the teacher mentions some new students coming in from the ghetto. Pico prepares himself for what could be yet another disaster. And with that sequel hook, the game was over. Overall, Pico School is a fun time. Without it, we might not have Newgrounds today, so it's worth respecting for that alone. Yet, that wasn't it for Pico. While not starring him, there are 2 other games/movies that featured 2 characters who were also in Pico School. If you want to be technical, these other 2 actually predate Pico, but only by a little bit, seeing as all three were made at around the same time. These characters are the aforementioned Nene and also Darnell. Darnell didn't appear physically in Pico's school, but Pico mentions him and you can see a poster that advertises him running for school president. This poster also lets us know that he only has 5 more years to live. Nene's game was Nene Interactive Suicide, a game which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a simpler experience than Pico's school is. Nene wakes up one morning, finds out she has herpes, and that brings her to kill herself. Nene has quite a few tools at her disposal, such as razor blades, her ceiling fan, and milk. That's really all it is. You get to pick the method by which she dies and watch how it goes. The funniest thing about the game is the voice acting, which is just Tom Fulp's voice pitched up. The second one isn't a game, but rather an animation. Darnell Plays with Fire, in which Darnell plays with fire. Again, exactly what it sounds like. Darnell is a little pyromaniac who loves burning things and blowing stuff up. It's a short little movie without any kind of voice acting, just speech bubbles with text. Spoilers for this classic, but the movie ends with a plane exploding and Darnell getting crushed by it. He then meets God in the afterlife and is punished for his crimes. These two don't hold up quite as well as Pico's school, but they're neat little time capsules and good for a chuckle at least. They were worth it for introducing these two characters, both of whom are the most recurring characters in the Pico series, aside from Pico himself. There are 2 other games from around this time that feature Pico. The first is Pico vs. Bear, a game where Pico has to defuse a hostage situation that involves the bear in the big blue house. By defusing the situation, of course I mean go in guns blazing. This game is notable for the fact that it actually got Tom Fulp in some hot water with Disney, and he had to take down the original version. It was then replaced with an updated version that changed the characters slightly as to not draw any more ire from Disney. It's a good game, but definitely more simple than Pico's school. You just point and shoot, not that there's anything wrong with that. The other game is Pico vs. Uberkids. This game features the return of Darnell and Nene. They and Pico are first to go up against 3 genetically manufactured super students, aptly dubbed the Uberkids. Luckily, Pico is given a choice in how they should duel these 3 enhanced kids, and he chooses one that is solely luck-based. That is rock, paper, scissors, roulette. Basically, you play rock, paper, scissors, and whoever loses has to play Russian roulette. While it all comes down to random chance, I think that aside from Pico's school, this is my favorite classic Pico game. It's just so addicting to trying to get all 3 of the players to survive. That just about covers all 5 pieces of media in the classic Pico pentology. That's just scratching the surface, though. Something worth noting is that after the original 5 flashes, Pico became something of a public domain figure to Newgrounds. Anybody could make a flash cartoon, game, or piece of art featuring the character and his friends. So there's a lot of Pico stuff out there. Rather than talk about any of those, though, I'd actually like to take a closer look at Pico and his friends as characters. People tend to write off Pico and his crew as edgy and nothing more, but I feel like that's something of a disservice. I think that whether he intended to or not, Tom Fulp created some genuinely endearing characters here. As messed up as they are, these are characters that all have easily defined traits and designs. Simplistic, but not to the point of being mere cardboard cutouts. They undeniably have a lot of personality, and because of that, they can be interpreted in dozens of ways while still feeling true to the originals. Yet, it's not Fulp's work alone that makes these characters iconic. There have been a lot of contributors out there, each adding their own flavor. Some old fans get mad at how Pico is interpreted by modern fans who introduce the character via FNF, and yeah, I definitely get it. You can see some rough shit out there, but Pico's always been a character that varies heavily by the work he appears in. There's an anime-style dating simulator that got super popular. It has over 5 million views on Newgrounds for the record. So off-the-wall and out-there depictions have always been around. These characters just lend themselves to it. Of course, I'd say Pico got the definitive redesign thanks to Pico's Unloaded by Mind Chamber. This redesign came to define the character for years to come, and for good reason. The urban graffiti look really fits the character, and it gave him a defined silhouette. It's a truly great design. Honestly, I just like these funny little characters. Like I said, they're all genuinely endearing in an odd way. I think my favorite would have to be Nene. A ditzy, knife-obsessed, promiscuous girl makes for a character that can be really funny and cute in some depictions, or psychotic and scary in others. As an aside, I have no idea if it's pronounced Nene or Nene. Might even be pronounced Nene if you're a maniac of some sort. Personally, I've always said Nene. I prefer that pronunciation, because it's funnier. All that being said, I think Darnell is easily the most underrated of the trio. A pyromaniac who, supposedly, only has 5 years to live is a funny concept in and of itself. Something that's overlooked is that Darnell is outright more psychopathic than Nene or Pico. Note how in Pico vs. Uberkids, Nene is utterly terrified of fighting them and Pico is shocked. Darnell, though, he's got a huge grin. Despite the fact that his life is on the line, he treats the whole thing like a game. I honestly don't think there's enough done with these characters lately. Thanks to Friday Night Funkin', Pico's gotten a lot of the spotlight, and while it is pretty great that the character isn't dead, I also think it's kinda sad it's only him getting the crux of the focus. That's not to say the others haven't gotten any attention. I've seen a lot of great mods for FNF featuring them, and plenty of fantastic art out there, but still. I think the other two deserve just as much recognition as Pico's got it. Darnell made a cameo in Week 5, so it's not outside the realm of possibility that we might see him and also Nene appear more prominently at some point. Would be nice. Actually, wait, hold on. Let me interrupt this with an unrelated tangent. You know who absolutely needs more love? Convict. I've seen recent fan art for Cassandra and even Picanjo, but Pico's third archenemy is forgotten. This man was prominent enough to get into Newgrounds Rumble at one point. So come on, guys. To anybody in the community, I encourage, nay, I demand more Convict love. The dude rules, and he deserves it. I do it myself, but I have no artistic talent whatsoever. Where was I? Oh yeah! The characters of Pico are surprisingly great and deserve just as much love as the main protag himself. Just when it looks like the series is forgotten, something drags it back up. Whether it be the first Pico Day in 2006 or Friday Night Funkin', you can't keep Pico down forever. Psst! By the way, to anybody who's watching this who might be working at Newgrounds, I'd love to be able to buy figures or plushes of Pico, Nene, and Darnell. Just letting you know. At least make a Nene shirt. Come on. Yeah, I guess with that I have nothing else to say on the topic. This is far from a definitive history. Just a brief coverage of the first few pieces of Pico content and rambling on about how cool I think the characters are. There's a lot more I could have covered, such as the unreleased Pico School 2 or Newgrounds Rumble, but those are topics worth discussing all on their own. Anyway, if you managed to watch this long, then thanks. I hope you learned something new and gained an appreciation for Pico and his crew. Or if you already did appreciate them, I hope I've done them justice. I also hope you enjoyed this video. I've really been branching out with my content and experimenting lately. When I first began this channel, I didn't think I'd ever make voice content like this, but now I've made 3 videos in this format. It's kinda crazy. I'm not much of a public speaker, so if anything I've ever read has ever sounded stilted or off, that's why. Hopefully, I'll improve as time goes on. Anyway, once again, thanks for watching. I guess this is also the part where I do the typical YouTuber thing and say to like and subscribe, so like and subscribe! Sure! Yeah, do that. Do it. Now! Okay, bye.